So, hello everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Immersive Theatre of Learning, where the magic of theatre meets the power of learning. And this episode is called "The Case of the Missing Present." And the case of the missing present is actually a book, or will be a book. The book is not out yet. It will be in a couple of weeks. Mm, if I come to Sitges, maybe I'll bring a few copies.
Yes.
Um,
And Oli and I promise to buy them if you come with them, okay?
they want me to spend hundreds and hundreds of euros to come to Sitges and then buy a book for 20. No, but that's very kind. That's very kind. And yes, so the case of the missing present also is what you see behind me. This is not my new flat. This is actually part of the cover of this book. Now, the book has a long history because actually about 1 year ago, I had the idea for an experience, a walk around experience, a little bit between tourism and something deeper, right? So something about learning. And Diana, who is here tonight, she was part of this experience of this prototype, and she took a few photos as well that we used for communication. And and then kind of Elsie, who cannot be here today, but who is here very often, she said, maybe you could do a book about this. You could write a book about this. And I started to write this kind of guide, how to live more fully in the moment, how to use your senses, and so on. And I got carried away, and I wrote basically the book in 2 weeks. And Elsie was kind enough to uh, to read the first copy, and she said, "Yeah, but the story is missing. There is no story. I mean, it's a good guide, but it's a bit boring because there's no story. I mean, the idea of your experience was the story." And so I put it in the drawer again, and I thought, what can I do with the story? And then one morning, I woke up very early and thought about detective stories that I used to read quite a lot. And this is kind of the period in the United States in the 1930s, 40s. I wasn't born then, contrary to common belief. But but Raymond Chandler, Colonel Woolridge, William Irish, these names probably ring a bell among some of you. And so basically noir fiction. And then I tried to write a fiction part for the book in this style. So basically now it's two books in one, a fictional part and a non-fiction part. And but it's still a guide to be more in the moment, but it's also a story. So I'm quite excited about this. And then I did another prototype of the experience last week in London, outside the London Experience Week, with a few volunteers. And actually, I wanted to take the facilitator out completely, and I just wanted to be the detective. But then there were sometimes there were these awkward moments when people didn't know what to do. And I thought, well, shall I let them struggle like in a real case? Or shall I intervene and do something? And actually, that was another prototype. So we're not completely there yet. So I think the book has now overtaken the experience, but one day there will be both side by side, the experience and the book. And before we start chatting, I would like to read just a very, very short extract from the fiction part. And after this, I will ask my first question. Those of you who know the program know that there's always an opening question. So, just to give you a little bit of context, so the protagonist of this book is a middle-aged detective who lives alone in a small place like this, an insomniac, and a coffeeholic, so somebody who loves coffee and who listens to vinyl jazz records late at night. And then he starts wondering about his finances because he doesn't have enough clients, right, in his job as a private eye. And but then he has the feeling that he is on a case and he receives a phone message and so on. So all kinds of things happen. And without actually anybody paying for him, he starts looking for a person who's got missing. And so here is a very, very small extract from this book. Time picks sides. Some folks are stuck in the past, sounding bitter and resigned, like some of my exes. They dwell on the past like it's an old friend. The truth is, they don't have many others. Some polish their mistakes until they shine. That sounds more like me. We keep polishing those old worn out shoes, forgetting they'll never pass for new again. Most folks are stuck in some kind of no time, waiting for something to happen. And while this thought went through my head, I was wondering, was I living a life or was it lived for me? My mind is a fugitive on the run. What from? I don't know. And its closest ally is that little device in my pocket. Still no messages, by the way. Now, I was wondering what time my mind was in most of the time. I wrote that question down. I looked at it and wasn't even sure it was good English. Would anyone understand it? What time is my mind in most of the time? And this is my first question to you. What time is your mind in most of the time? Uh, are you thinking about, do you often think about the past, um, memories, regrets? Is it the present moment, enjoying the sunshine, the rain, the coffee, the tea? Is it future plans? Of course, our mind always goes back and forth, but okay. So I open up the floor. What time is your mind in most of the time? Question shows here. Lonnie, any thoughts?
Yes, I have too many thoughts. That's why I'm keeping quiet. Uh, yeah. Should I give you an answer orally right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Um, I'm not in any time. I'm sort of in on a bridge between times, a bridge between the past and the future. Um, uh, yes. How can I put this? All of the richness and the energy that I have comes very much from the past, but all of the desires that I've got are very much in the future. And basically I'm living very much in the present, but I feel very much like a kind of spider with legs in one direction and other legs in another direction. So it's not very comfortable, but it's certainly very exciting. Uh, and with all of that, yeah, sometimes I shut the outside world out and live very much in the present. And the rest of the time, I feel like an overexpanded bridge, trying to take things that I knew in the past and see how they could be repurposed for the future. Uh, yeah, I've done a lot of things. I'm pretty old. I'm probably the oldest person in this group at the moment. I'm 79. Um, but it's very interesting because I mean, I've seen things that nobody else has seen. Um, I mean, I remember long before refrigerators were invented, we would have the iceman arrive uh, with with enormous blocks of ice, And of course, you had to have enormous muscles in order to have those blocks of ice. And I remember my mother, who was a very Victorian, puritanical woman, would feel this incredible ripple of excitement as she saw this amazing iceman sort of delivering it. It's all, you know. And then when the iceman left, the milkman would come with his horse and cart. Um, so I have all of these things, but I'm also very much trying to work with people who are basically 35 years old, so much younger than I am, and I'm trying to constantly find ways of translating my experience into symbols that they could relate to. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. That's a very long answer. I'm sorry about how long that took.
That's a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for sharing, Lonnie. Anybody else feels inspired by this question? Yes, Carolyn.
Um, I'm probably mostly the present to the future, more short-term to-do lists, and then um, planning. The past, I do reflect on, my personal past history, especially way back when I was a hostess in a Japanese nightclub and other stuff I've done, um, but I really am trying to stay in the present, partly because then I don't get physically injured when I'm doing stuff that might be too heavy to lift or stuff like that. So I have to be very, very, very present.
Hmm.
And it's a conscious effort to be present.
Hmm.
Lots of practice.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else who would like to share?
I would like
Ollie.
to. So that's very interesting question because you said what time is your mind in most
Hmm.
of the time, and sadly, my mind is most of the time in the past or in the future. That's why I probably make the decision to walk a lot in nature to allow my body to walk me in the
Hmm.
present time because my body is not thinking about the past or the future. So my mind is most of the time in the past or in the future, except when I truly connect with my body.
Hmm.
Because
Wonderful.
when I walk into the nature, if I allow my mind to be in the past or in the future, I will fall. I will not pay attention about my environment. I will crunch a root of a tree and then I will fall. So that for me, the best therapy they're happy earth to be in the present tense. That's it.
Wonderful. Yes, wonderful. And that's and I think you are also quite you're the one of the most untypical people I know. But in this particular case, I think you're quite typical from quite a lot of people who are either in the past or in the future most of the time, unless they do something deliberately, like walking in nature, riding a bicycle, reading a book or whatever it is, and then so that they can, yeah, for a moment maybe forget about their past memories and their future plans. What about you, Aliona?
I think the key word for me was definitely short-term future. Also with the kids, like short-term future would have done it.
I think we have some challenges with the audio.
Oh,
Uh,
give me just a second.
yeah, it's a little better, but not much.
Better.
Yes,
That's
that's
good.
good.
Yeah.
I use my headset because yeah, my daughter is home sleeping. She's sick.
Ah, okay.
I'll try to keep it quiet. Did you hear anything what I was saying?
I
No, no.
didn't know.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to say that the key word for me was the one that Carolyn mentioned, like to-do lists, especially with younger kids. What are we gonna have for lunch, dinner today, tomorrow, do in the afternoon? So mostly in the future, but not too far in the future. But again, what Carolyn mentioned, uh, it's beautiful when I can catch myself in a moment and make a conscious effort to be in the present because I know how important it is, especially when I spend time with my kids, and I don't want to rush it. Like the planning is on me, so I have to think about it, but I should take time to switch it off, turn it off, and just enjoy the moment with my kids. And when I catch those moments, they're beautiful. When I can see my child as it is in the present, not thinking about what we're gonna to do next, but just being, not doing.
Mm. Yeah, beautifully said. Being, not doing. I mean, we cannot just be all the time. We also have to do things, obviously. But yeah, sometimes reminding ourselves that we do so much, but we forget to be. That's an important reminder. How about you, Diana? Welcome to the program. So you're going to share with us a couple of things later on, but just the same question as to everybody else here in the room. What time is your mind in most of the time?
So, hello to everyone. I was very touched by the spider idea that Loni said the right moment, because it's like legs moving all around. I mostly, I get, I feel identified with it, but much more like a pulp, maybe, like
Yeah,
moving, like
yeah,
moving, but and jumping all the time, present,
yeah.
future, past. But I try in this time of my life, I try to be more in the present. I am doing a big effort to be in the present to, but it's like I feel like I don't know, like jumping, moving, jumping all over the places. It's a nice question like that because I visualize a jumping idea of
Mm,
time.
yes. Okay, thank you. We come to you in a few minutes, and welcome also to Jimena, who is joining us for the first time. So this is a safe space, so you don't have to speak if you don't want to. You don't have to be on camera if you don't want to. You're very welcome to just listen, but do not hesitate to come in anytime you want to contribute in this program. Now, my book is not only a detective story, it's not only pulp fiction. There's also something serious in the book. Um, and for example, does anyone know this book, which is not quite recent? It came out years ago, I think in the 1990s, by a psychologist by the name of Philip Zimbardo, The Time Paradox. So, the time paradox, many of us here in the room, at least Aliona, Carolyn, and myself. How does this go away? Sorry about that. View. Yes, here we go. So, Carolyn, Aliona, and myself, we're quite familiar with cultural aspects of time, right? So, some cultures are more kind of steeped in the past. There are traditions, and there is maybe a more traditional lifestyle and lots of rules that are kind of steeped in the past. Some cultures more in the present, and others always planning for the future. Philip Zimbardo doesn't take it from a cultural point of view, but from a personal point of view. And he distinguishes between six different time perspectives. And we have all six of them. But depending on which one we usually rely on when we make decisions, it has a big influence on our lives, right? So if we base all our decisions on past experiences, yeah, if our past experiences were good, maybe we're quite confident about ourselves. And if our past experiences were bad, we are probably afraid to take any initiative because we carry with us this kind of past trauma that keeps us from doing things. And we keep repeating this black and white movie of past disasters in our head and not thinking much of ourselves. Now, as it's also a detective book, I translated this into detective language, and I have a personality test for you now. On the following slides, you will see some descriptions of detectives, and the question to you is, what kind of detective are you? And it's loosely based on Zimbardo's time perspectives. So, the first one, and this is also an extract from the book, the first one is the archivist. The time perspective is past positive. So imagine yourself being a detective. So you would say, you keep your files in perfect order. Old photographs, handwritten notes, newspaper clippings. Every case helped you become the seasoned investigator you are. You are grateful for all the experiences you have had. They give you self-confidence. When something goes wrong, you can always tell yourself that you've been in difficult situations before and survived. I think every one of us has a little bit of that in us. Now, could you maybe give you between 1 and 5 points? So 5 points if this is clearly you. 1 point, yeah, there's a little bit of that in me, but not too much, right? So between 1 and 5. Okay. You can keep the scores for yourselves for the moment. Are you ready for the second one? Second one is the scarred investigator. Time perspective, past negative. You remember everything, especially what went wrong. Old cases still whisper in your ear, mistakes replay in your head at night, uninvited. You're cautious, sharp, but never surprised. You've seen it all before. You don't trust anybody until they prove to you that you can. You're caught in a trap, sorry for the P missing, living as if yesterday were a permanent verdict. Okay, past negative. So give yourselves between 0 and 5 points. Okay, we come to number 3. The streetwise detective. Time perspective is present hedonistic. You take risks. Tomorrow is abstract, but tonight is real. You live every moment as if it was your last, because it could be. And you know to be alive, truly alive, in every moment. Okay, give yourself between 0 and 5 points. Number 4, the resigned observer. Time perspective, present, fatalistic. You can solve a case, and you often do. Maybe someone will get arrested, but they always walk free sooner than you think. Your job as a detective is like any other job. You just do it. You won't change the world, but you need to pay the bills. Nothing can surprise you. Nothing can disappoint you either. You don't believe in the good in people. Nobody is innocent. Everyone will let you down sooner or later. Okay, so between 0 and 5 points. 2 more. Number 5 is the strategist. Time perspective, future focused. Your desk is clean, your calendar is full, efficiency is your comfort zone. You don't solve cases by intuition, you solve them by planning 3 moves ahead. Sacrifice today so that tomorrow can run smoothly. Okay, give yourselves between 0 and 5 points. And the very last one, the seeker. Time perspective, future transcendental. Every case matters beyond the paycheck. Your actions are not just guided by purpose, you search for meaning. You have faith in something larger than yourself. Call it values, call it integrity, call it the good in people, call it justice, call it God. You know the future is something worth fighting for. Compared to that, the present may feel secondary, almost trivial. Okay, so have a look at your most dominant profiles. And if you like to share, you can share. I don't think we need breakout rooms with a few people like this. You can share in the chat, or you can open your mic and share.
For me, it's very, very clear. It's the last one all the way. It's the only one that I put 5. The Seeker. Yeah, the Seeker. There was one other. The third one, I gave myself a 4, and all the others are sort of 1 and 2, but just because I was feeling generous, but it has nothing to do with me whatsoever.
Number 3 was what again? It was wait a minute. Number 3.
The present.
The present. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. How about the others?
The problem is that, for example, I thought the 6 was super good for me, but then at the end, this part doesn't fit. So it's like kind of half and half. I fit here and there, but I am number 3 mostly.
Okay, number 3. So the streetwise detective, so living in the moment. Yes. Taking risks. Yes. Okay. Good. Any other profiles, Carolyn?
My highest is archivist, which is kind of where I am partly right now, but learning, it's positive. I
Yeah.
know what triggered it. It was that, for example, a number of times I've just on my own taken off to live in some country. I've been illegal a number of times, and no job, no place to live, and leaving people. And it was, why do I do this? But I always go back and say, Carolyn, it works out. You have wonderful friends, new friends, even though you're leaving old friends. And so that was what triggered me for the positive part of the archivist. I'm 0 on 2 and 4. And for strategist and seeker, between 2 and 3, I put.
Okay.
There were parts, but like with Diana, the seeker, that last sentence or two, all of a sudden it was like, oh no, that's not me, and I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah, the last sentence is, you know, the future is something worth fighting for. Compared to that, the present may feel secondary, almost trivial.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always only maybe something in a profile that speaks to us, and maybe others not so much. I would love to play a game. Let's guess what Ollie's profile is before he shares. I'm pretty sure he's a seeker. The last one.
Is he with us?
Is he with us? I don't know. Okay. Aliona, let's hear from you.
Well, it's interesting because I gave myself points for each one of them. But the dominant was the seeker, the streetwise detective, and archivist. But I know those past negative, present fatalistic, they are sometimes part of me too. There are moments where yeah, it's like I think, well, it's not worth it, or yeah, they'll let them out anyway. I'll just do my job, because there are things, sometimes things that you just have to do no matter what you think about them. And if you think they're worth it or not worth it. But it's interesting. Those profiles, I think like every person has part of each one. But for me, for example, I'm not focused on the past, but I know that those archives that I've made so far, they influence what a detective I am in the present.
Yeah.
And the thoughts that I have about the future, they also influence who I am in the present. Although I gave myself the highest score on the future, the seeker, I feel like I'm still more in the present. But those future goals that, or not, the future that I think about it more like as goals. So I imagine myself living that future, if that makes sense. And it always,
Yeah.
and it almost feels like present,
Mm.
not so distant present.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Maybe it's also sometimes dreaming of that future or thinking of that future quite emotionally as well, makes it easier to get there, right? So there is this thing that neuroscientists tell us about the brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. So if you, I don't know, if you have an important talk to give and you're really nervous about this and you imagine, the atmosphere in the crowd and the cheering and everybody will love it and so on. So you've already done it once, right? So you rehearsed it once, and then when you're actually there, maybe you're just much calmer and quieter and much more positive about it than you would be if you just saw it as a challenge. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing your profiles. Now you are part of the task force now as detectives, but let's leave this theme for a moment. And so I asked Diana to share something with us that also relates to time in a totally different way. So I met Diana 2 years ago, a year and a half ago or something in Barcelona at Change Days.
Yeah.
And actually, we didn't really connect so much at Change Days. And then I discovered that she had taken a photo of me, a mugshot basically, that I found so great that I still use it in my profiles on social media and everywhere. And very grateful for that. And not only me, but also other people. You very, very nice, beautiful face portraits that you took of the people who were there at
Thank
Change
you.
Day. And so we stayed in touch and we met up again. And you also took some photos of the detective experience the first time we ran it. And you are originally, you live in Lyon, France, right? But you are originally from Colombia.
Yeah.
And I think you wanted to share with us something about one of your missions, one of your
Experiences.
previous experiences. That's the right word. And yeah, take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. So I want to share with you my concept of time and my experiences. So many generations, cultures, religions, and spiritual traditions discuss what time means. Some even say that time doesn't exist, but only the present moment. So this is what you see here is the Araco community from the Sierra Nevada in Colombia. So what about thinking about the present moment? So I was imagining the present moment is now. In this way, we should always think about the now. As I was saying, I am mostly living in this timing, but what does it mean for real? So I would say in Spanish, you say el ahora, which means the now, and it comes from the word being on time, estar a la hora, be on time. So it comes really, the word is linked to the word time. But in fact, we can deploy that in a more wide way. El ahora is not only the now as we would imagine in English, because it has multiple possibilities. So in Latin America, we have also the word ahorita. So what does ahora mean? Ahora means the present, but it also means a little bit later, luego, in a few minutes, or al rato, in a few minutes later. And it also means tomorrow, maybe later, not soon, but maybe tomorrow. And it can also mean possibly never. So it's incredibly difficult to define this word. And in worse than that, the word ahora in Colombia is the opposite. We say ya, which means exactly in this moment. Ahorita means in a moment. Ahora más tarde means later on. So how can we handle that? And here I have the varieties from multiple countries. It means that this is a mindset, actually. It's our mindset linked to our cultural origins. So it's much more linked to our ancestors. And our ancestors were thinking about time very linked to nature. So in the traditional, maybe you already know about this, in the traditional ways of analyzing time, it's the linear time and the cyclical time. It's the basic two definitions that we all know. Now we know the six more that Bern just said. But the cyclical time is there based on the nature, the moon phases, the female reproductive cycle, the seasons, the sun. And most calendars were based in indigenous autochthonous groups. Calendars were based on this analysis of time. So for those that maybe you don't know, this is called chronemics, the study on the use of time. And if we make it in a double possibility, it's rigid or monochronic, or fluid, polychronic, where we can do simultaneous things at the same time. And it can be also fluctuating view of time. So as to show the different perspectives in different countries, we can also have the proposition of slow time with a 24 hours watch proposed by some Swiss brand. But returning to our topic, cyclical ancestors were based on the different levels of the universe, and they always were reading it in circles. And this is the Mexican Aztec calendar. And many cultures were based on this. Many South American cultures were based on this calendar. And I want to share with you my experience working with the Kogis and the Arhuacos, who are two very important indigenous group for us in Latin America. So Colombia, as you see in the left, and a detail of it in the right. It's they live in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, which is a mountain, and they live up there in the mountains. And we consider them our big brothers because they consider ourselves, the people in the city, they consider us the small brothers. So when I started working with them, like many years ago, 20 years ago, I worked with them several times, but my first time was like 25 years ago. I came from my Occidental point of view, with my mind full of biases. And when I started working with them and other indigenous groups, it was completely mind changing because I learned, but specifically with this group, that their concept of time was completely different. So we were working to develop the bags, traditional bags, and I was going to teach them to make them more colorful, with variations in dyeing techniques and drawings to take again, work again on traditional drawings and with more meaning. But working with them was in their demand. I was working because they asked for it. So I was going to work 10 days in the mountains with them, with a team of people. And yes, we started to come every day, and we told them, okay, we are going to work together. And they say, yes, wonderful, we want to learn, we are open, we need to make variations of our colors, of our bag, traditional bag that you can see in the picture. But in fact, they have many, many chores that they are concerned with. So cultivating the land, taking care of nature, walking on the mountains, checking that rivers are trees and trees are well, collecting the food for the family, as well as the women that are knitting, are weaving knitting the bags. They also cultivate the land, and they walk and walk and walk and walk all the time, because men and women walk permanently in the mountains. And of course, they take care of their children. So whenever I tell them, okay, we have an appointment at 10 a.m. tomorrow to start working in the project, well, they end up coming at 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So I was saying, how come I waited for you all day long? And they said, yes, but I am here. It's no problem. And then they were always saying, but this morning I had to go to the mountains. I had to work the earth, but no worries. I am really interested in working this. So we started working for 5 minutes, and then she said, no, I have to leave. I have to continue working the land. So it was very, very difficult, and we stayed there for 10 days and we couldn't really work. And we tried this for a second time, like 1 year later, and we couldn't really work. It was very difficult because we cannot stand, like make them get into our organization, into our Occidental point of view of time. And just the only thing was letting things go with nature and letting things happen as they could. So we understood with the team of designers that their timing was circular and a spiral, and they were all days, every day, each day, they were doing the same chores. So going to the land, going to the river, taking a bath in the river, coming to visit us, drink something, and walking the mountains and walking the mountains and walking the mountains. As you see here at the right, I have some drawings that represent their traditional hats, as well as their houses and their traditional object, where it's a bottle that they used to eat different elements that give them energy. So everything is based on the spiral. Their construction of the houses is based on the spiral. The technique of weaving the bag is based on the spiral. So their thinking is based on the spiral. And it was difficult to come and just be with them without knowing this before going. I should have learned of this, but I learned it by being with them. And they pass their time all the time walking in the mountains, as I said, thinking about us. We are their younger siblings, and they think they can really guide us through our be united with nature. They are semi-nomads. They live in one day in this house, in this village, and they have another one different in another part of the mountain, where they live another day, and then a third one in the highest part of the mountain. And they have several houses where they sleep and they eat and they go on. Children sometimes go to school, and sometimes they just stay in nature playing. Teenagers sometimes help their parents work on their land, which is perfectly normal for them. And sometimes they go to school whenever they feel it, whenever they think they want it, and whenever they feel it's okay for them. So it was also part of a project trying to get them to go to school, but we had to get adapted to their rhythm. So most of the time they are focused on walking, and as I was saying, and reflecting on life and nature. They hold in their hand the jar called poporo, which combines coca and lime, that will give them energy for the whole day long. And they are going to be reflecting about the human beings and how can they be connected to nature, and how can we be destroying nature. We have not been able to live in harmony with nature. So this is the reason why we consider them as the philosophical people. Everyone talks about this philosophical indigenous group that is protecting us. They are our protectors and our ancestors, and they are still there in the mountains. And they are the philosophical people, not because they learned how to live with nature, but because they are nature. Thank you very much. I missed the last slide. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Diana. So that was super interesting, fascinating, and also, of course, a big opportunity to actually live, experience some time with these people. And I wonder if there is, I mean, I can open up the floor to this, but I have an idea as well, but maybe somebody else wants to jump in. I wonder if there is a way to work with these people by simply following them and joining in on their routines. So, for example, walking with them, helping them with cultivating the ground, spending the meals with them. So basically getting into their rhythm and then starting conversations about that. What do you think, Diana?
Yes, of course. That's the way that should be done. But it depends on the aims of the project. If the project has a specific amount of money that has to be developed in 10 days, and we have to develop, I don't know, 10 new bags with 10 new designs, well, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So, okay, walking with them in the mountains, we could be part of them, be part of the nature, become nature with them. But maybe we're not going to get the bags done, but it's okay. It's another kind of project. It's another kind of, actually what we did was we said, okay, we are not going to get to do the bags, and we are only going to write information about everything we see and make more a research project than the final objective. It wasn't possible. So yes, it's another project. Yes.
Yes. Very interesting. We have at least two interculturalists in the room, but also very well-traveled people in the room. And any other experiences anybody wants to share with clashes in time cultures? Lonnie.
Yeah. Right. Now, I live in the north of Sweden. Sweden is very much a Western culture and civilization, but we're so far north that at Christmas time, we only get about 3.5 to 4 hours of daylight. And during the summer months, we get up to 22 hours of light. Yeah. Now, in 2004, on the 21st of December, which is the darkest day of the year, our house caught fire. It burnt down and we lost everything. It was just horrendous. And the next day we were fine. We couldn't think about the house. We couldn't think about any of the problems because the weather was just, we had a bit of sun and we were just so delighted that we were flying around as if nothing had happened. And yet we'd lost everything. But 1 year later, when we were back at exactly the same light and darkness balance, we all went into mourning, and it was terrible. But it wasn't chronological time. It was cyclical time. We were back at the same point in the cycle, and so we were at the same point that we were at 1 year before. I have 3 children. What's interesting in terms of what I'm talking about here, I think, is the reaction of my second child, second out of 3, and my older, the 2 daughters. For 1 year, she couldn't talk about the trauma, and she would explode anytime anyone mentioned it because it was just so painful, and she just shut it away completely. And then about a week or 2 ahead of getting back to the same point in the cycle.
Mm.
She just started talking, took 2 weeks off school just in order to debrief everything that happened to her in that year. So I was not in the same situation as Diana, where we had to impose a certain concept of time in order to meet production standards of a westernized civilization.
Yeah.
But it struck me as very, very clear that when you are up this far north, you don't think of time as linearly.
Yeah.
It's cyclical. And around the 1st of March every year, you'll happen upon people from this area and you'll meet them sort of in a supermarket or in a corner shop or something or other. And the conversation always is exactly the same. It's either, have you seen? And the other person says, yeah. Or have you noticed? Yes. And it's sort of an internalized communion of a certain moment in nature, which is not chronicle, which is not chronological, which is not linear. It's very, very, very different.
Mm.
So, not in all to take away from the power of what Diana was telling us about, but even in Western cultures, if you're that far north, you're obliged to live cyclically. You cannot live linearly.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for sharing that. Also, yeah, I wonder to what extent also as you said, the light and the also climate temperatures and so on, and maybe also being closer to nature. So if you live in a city like, I don't know, London, New York, Chicago, Washington, and so on, nature is basically parks, right? and so man-made or basically looked after by humans. But if you really live out there in nature, in a natural reserve or in
Yeah.
the savannas or whatever, you probably, time has a different connotation, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, except at this moment, I have a very Western time problem, and I'm going to have to
You need to go.
fire commitment.
But we know that you will come back next time, so it's cyclical again, right?
Absolutely. Just let me know when we get to the same point in the cycle, okay? Okay, love to all of you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for sharing,
Thank you.
Lenny.
Yeah. Bye-bye now.
Wonderful. Okay. Anybody else who'd like to? Yeah, Carolyn.
Well, Lonnie's example with the light and dark. My family's originally from Montana, so many of my relatives there are in farming and ranching, and it's always, well, whenever we have harvest. We don't know because it's so dependent on the the wet, the amount of sun, et cetera, et cetera. And so you don't speak in terms of, well, on July 31st, we'll be starting to harvest. No, they don't know. In fact, sometimes they don't know from day to day, or, well, we can come to the family picnic if it rains on Sunday. That's what we hear. And so we don't want the farmers to have rain because they need to get harvest going, but it's always nice to see them at the family picnic. I can't even think of an exact example, but the just like Diane's example with what ahora means or ahorita, and that even varies. What increment of time that is can vary within urban, rural, and different Latin American countries, but some languages don't even have, I'll throw a past tense or a future tense, or future and present is the same tense. And so if you're having to be really explicit, then that's where your adverbs come in. Um,
Yeah.
so so that's always interesting.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Also, what Diana shared with us also reminded me of, I think some of us are familiar with the work of Edward T. Hall, right? So I think he came up with this concept of time by working with Native American people, right? Before he discovered, time cultures in Japan and in Germany and in Mexico and so on. So yeah, so that actually, and also um, other interculturalists. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Kluckhohn and Strottbeck. Even
Yeah,
even before that,
back.
with yeah, way back with the values. Are we dominated by nature?
Yes.
We dominate nature, or are we in harmony with nature? Like Diana shared in her slides, living in harmony with nature. And there's so much we can learn from this, right? So because we think, yeah, we know everything, how to live our lives, but yeah, the domination of nature has a cost and a very big cost. And so, yeah, right. Any other thoughts, any questions to Diana before we um, open up the page? Because Carolyn said something very interesting about language. I have a question, but maybe somebody else has a question first.
I just wanted to share, Bern, come back to your question. If it's possible to work with people just joining the routines and following them. So, Diana, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would believe you have to convince them that they need that work. And sorry, I missed the first part of your presentation. So they would only probably be open to do something when they realize the value that it brings to them. Because creating new routines, adding new patterns to what you already have, it is extremely difficult, and you need a big portion of motivation to do that. So they would probably
In
um,
fact, you're right. In fact, the men, which are the leaders of the
mhm.
groups and the fathers of the family, some of them can be able to go and study at the university and have a diploma and work with a company. And I have one of them who is a friend of what in the moment was a friend of mine. He was working with Microsoft in Bogota, so it was completely awkward because he was coming to Bogota, in Bogota, to the offices of Microsoft wearing the traditional outfit, which in Bogota is completely, we are not in Paris or in New York. Bogota is very traditional. So this was
Mm,
really different and it was interesting. But the women and the children and the young are really in their not making not protected. They never come out of the mountain. It's their daily life. So it's very, very, it's another level of difficulty, but well, I'm not there anymore. Maybe the projects, there have been other projects that worked out, but yes, I think there's a way of doing slowly, slowly, slowly changing the rhythms, you know?
mm,
And
absolutely.
related to that, there was an example. I cannot remember the book because I was listening to it, so I cannot even visualize it. But there was a story, and it was the concept of time and doing, being. There was an example of a person who lived on a seashore, and this is my like really my interpretation of that story that I listened to a few years ago. And another person came up to that person and said, "Well, why don't you take a net and start catching fish?" And it's like, and what's next? Well, then you can sell fish, and then you can get money, and then you can open a company, and then you can hire
Yeah,
people, and so on and so on. Like, so what can I do with that? Well, so one day you can retire and sit there and like look at this thing. I said,
exactly.
"Well, that's what I'm doing now."
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. It's like in this saying, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but some people um have a clock and some people have the time, right? And yeah, very, very interesting. Now, I would like to come back to the idea of language. And I think language, I mean, there's this eternal discussion, right? What comes first, the language that influences the way we feel and think, or if it's the thinking that creates the language. But I think, yeah, other than what Lonnie said about climate and being close to nature and being in the north or being in a particular culture, I think language can also influence the way we look at time. If there is no word for a particular thing, then, the concept is much more difficult to grasp. And so Diana and I had a conversation about ahora and ahorita. And the main female character in the book, the person who got missing, is actually called Aurora, right? So that
Ah.
she made it into the book.
Oh, wow.
So the whole story is about finding that woman, and I will not give it away, of course, whether they find her or not, if it's a real person or not. So that's part of the story. Um, Now, don't know how many language we all speak here in this room, but I'd like to share something that actually I wanted to put on the slides, but I forgot. I will just share it like this. From languages you may or may not speak. And it's quite interesting to see those different concepts. For example, the second one there in Norwegian, I don't know how to pronounce this, but we have the same word in German, Augenblick, right? The same idea, which is basically just, this the second you blink with an eye, and that's the current moment. And then in Japanese, I find that very beautiful as well, the floating world. Um, Living in the moment, detached from worldly concerns, and then also the Chinese word here, this very moment, often used in mindfulness. And then the German word Gegenwart, which is really about being present, right? So being conscious about the present, Gegenwart, which is also the German word for the tense. The present tense is Gegenwart, right? And then compared to the Portuguese word saudade, um, it's kind of longing for a moment as it slips away, right? So the kind of melancholy aspect of nothing will ever last. So beautiful. Does anybody have any other examples from languages? Ollie, you speak 25,000 languages, no?
No. I would be happy. I speak hello and thank you in 40 plus languages, but like holding hands, maintenant,
Yeah.
like to the verb maintain, maintenir. So maintenant is now, and then the amazingness is like the word aujourd'hui, which is today. Aujourd'hui, in fact, it's saying 3 times right now, today, because they aujourd'hui. And so au jour d'aujourd'hui, it's like, and what is amazing, I'm going to paraphrase my best scene of the Kung Fu Panda, where Uguay says, yesterday is history, tomorrow is mystery, but today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. So that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes. Yeah, French is also quite an interesting language, right? So there are some words that simply don't exist in French, right? And I can't think of one now, but yeah, there is no word for cheap, for example, in French, right? So you say bon marché, say
Yeah,
pas
bon
cher.
marché. That's a good cope in German, I think. Goede koop, because
Yes,
German is like I've learned also Dutch, so Dutch is a bit like Germaning. So it's like something that is um, a great deal. It's a great deal. Bon marché.
yes. Mm. Okay. Now, before we close this session, I have another little thing to share with you about time. And
Can I share one idea, please?
yes, please go ahead.
Okay. That doesn't have anything to do with my presentation. It's another example that I wanted to share, is that within Occidental and Muslims, I was living my brother is living in countries that are related to Muslim, and I was living in France or whatever. So we wanted to find a date for the vacation, as Caroline was saying. We wanted to make a date for the vacations, and it wasn't possible because they were saying which is the day of Ramadan, and we don't know yet. But it's in 1 week. We need to go on vacations in 1 week. We need to buy the tickets, whatever. No, I don't know when I'm going to in vacations. We don't know yet when is it going to be Ramadan because it depends on the moon. And then they decide the date of Ramadan one day before, depending on the phases of the moon, and then they don't know. So the school, Occidental school, was guiding themselves to based on the Ramadan calendar, and they didn't know when to go on vacations, even if it was an American school. So it was really weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the example. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I think time is such a rich concept, right? And maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe your people were right, Diana, that time is just a concept and doesn't really exist. And it's the only thing that exists is the current moment. Now, in the Western world, we have that kind of problem that we're often disconnected from the present, very often with technology. We're with people who are somewhere else. So we are scrolling, doom scrolling, and I have this terrible memory of um, driving a car in my hometown and showing people around, and there were these teenage kids who were just looking at their phones, right? So very proudly, I presented the house where I was born, and I looked back in the rear mirror, and they were looking at their phones, and I thought, ah. I mean, this was not a sensational house, but just out of courtesy, I would have just had a look, right? So not being with people when they share something of their own lives. This is the
Yeah,
wonderful thing about this circle here, that we even though we are all remote, I think there's a lot of very deep sharing that happens in many sessions, right, including today. Ollie, yes, please.
yeah, it's to remember them also that the map is not the territory. So
Yeah.
much time in my walks, I see in the map streets where paths that are closed, but I have to confront myself in the reality that, oh, it's open in the map, but it's closed in reality. And then how much time I don't see anything in the map, but there is a path. Unless I'm exploring, I cannot really see the reality. So it's really to realize that they are probably looking at their phones like Google Maps, whatever, but they are not really present in you. It's also to give value to the knowledge that you bring, not the knowledge of all the encyclopedias that exist all around the world. What is a brain compared to petabytes of information? Well,
Mhm.
the brain, especially when it's connected to the heart, has the most valuable information of the
Mm.
present tense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes. There is a passage in the book where the detective thinks about Rodin, Rodin, the French sculptor, and there is this famous sculpture of the thinker, and the detective imagines if Rodin lived today, he wouldn't cast the thinker into iron, but the scroller. Holding a phone. The gesture is very similar, right? But you hold a phone like this, yes, and it changes everything. What I would like to share, just to maybe to finish to the session today, is something I discovered for myself years ago, because everybody was talking about rituals and how to use rituals in your life and in your work and so on. And it didn't really mean anything to me, because for me, rituals were related to maybe church or maybe to tradition or to old things, but not to my life really, until I really understood what it was. And in the book, there's also a whole chapter on rituals. And I came up with this working definition. Maybe you have a better one. A ritual is an intentional action repeated over time that creates meaning by bringing your attention fully into the present moment. So many of us kind of have routines. All of us have routines, of course, like also your the people you worked with in Colombia, they have these routines. For me, the difference between a routine and a ritual is being either on autopilot, which is the routine thing, or being conscious about it. And one activity I love doing in workshops is to ask people to take some of their routines or one of their routines and transform it into a ritual. This could be like, for example, making coffee in the morning, and instead of just having a quick cup and then jumping out into the street, into the car, or into the train and off to work, maybe to get up a few minutes earlier and to enjoy the first coffee, to grind the coffee beans, to have that smell, to really prepare it, and to enjoy, and maybe also to share the first coffee with the people around you. And maybe my last question to you today, uh, is there a routine in your lives that maybe you have turned into a ritual, or that you could turn into a ritual and be then more mindful and more present in whenever you perform them or you celebrate them, or whatever verb you want to use with ritual? Yes, Ollie.
Well, I have a story, and it will be short, but 10 years and a few weeks ago, there was Brussels bombings, and then
Yes.
someone was grieving. She wrote a poem that became translated in 70 plus languages.
Mm,
And then she passed away in 2022. But since more than a year, it's a routine, but it's also a ritual. What I would like also to convey is that the ritual is even better when you can embark others,
mm,
because it's what happening each day at 1 p.m. Central or European time. We are meeting online to quote her poem, "We Shall Stand for Love," and
mm,
her name is Dorothy Auger, and then it's Jessica that is maintaining this ritual, which is a routine for each of us, but it's a ritual also because we are sharing it. And even if I'm not able to attend her session, there is always one day each day that I think about Dorothy Auger and that I think about her poem.
mm,
So that's what I would like to convey, is to always embark others,
mm.
because then it becomes really a ritual where we can share a common value, a common practice. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And it's commemorations, yeah, are rituals, right? So at the anniversary of a terrible event, even Lonnie's story was about that, right? 1 year later, suddenly we started mourning, right? And then maybe a ritual would help, maybe a self-designed ritual would help process what happened, and maybe give it a shape and a form and a feeling that unites, and maybe also helps create that community, like in the example that Ollie just shared. Any other examples of routines into ritual? It doesn't have to be as dramatic and as traumatic as Ollie's example or Lonnie's example. Aliona, you unmuted yourself.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's not exactly the ritual, but this is something that I've been working on intentionally with my family because, yeah, I want to create some rituals and traditions for the family because what I thought now, and I want to share that thought that rituals, I would say they have some positive connotation as opposed to routines. And I feel like when we create rituals, we kind of give ourselves the sense of control. So it's
Yes.
not something that I have to do because I have to do it. It's a ritual that I created because I wanted to be something special and I wanted to keep this as a memory for whatever reason. Like we've created a couple New Year traditions that we do, and we only started that maybe like 5 years ago, but this year it was a little off and I didn't do something, and the kids were like, Mom, why are we not doing this this year? So it's like, oh, it's working. So I should stick to it and keep up with it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the coming back, right? So every year, right? So the annual return of the same ritual, which
It may
is
be annual, it may be daily.
yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. Yes, yeah, wonderful. Caroline, you wanted to say something as well?
Well, what came to me is you can't be multitasking when you're having a ritual. Um, so I do a morning walk. I meet a friend 2/3 of the way through for coffee. I walk the rest, come back home and make a cup of tea. That cup of tea, I drink it just quietly outside if the weather's okay or inside, but I never take it to the computer to read something or anything. And that's interesting to me. Then for the rest of the day I'm drinking coffee or I have another cup of coffee, and that I can be doing like while I'm on a webinar or something. But the tea, I don't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful. Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Great examples. Yes. Diana.
I have a ritual, and since like before social media, before internet, before whatever, I started taking photos of myself just because I wanted to see my evolution, like a portrait, auto portrait. So, but like only standing still and to see myself. And afterwards, now everyone does it, and no, my pictures are, and I have all my history. Not every day, but every time I can or I can remember, and but I try to do it like as a journal.
Mm. Nice. Wonderful. Very, very nice. Yes. So there are millions of possibilities for rituals. Wonderful. I think we're all on the same wavelength here. I would like to thank Diana for sharing her story working with the indigenous people in Colombia. First time I heard this story, so I found this really, really fascinating. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who was here and open to share. We had a smaller community here, but it was a very, very deep session, I think, with a lot of deep sharing. And thank you for this. We have an idea for the next session as well. The date will be communicated very shortly. A young learning experience designer I met in real life last week in London. She comes from Germany, and her name is Jennifer Fritz. She will be one of the speakers, and she will be talking about uh, digital storytelling and a few other things. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening,
Thank
morning,
you very much for
afternoon.
inviting me, and thank you all you for listening to me and being able to share the story, which is very meaningful. So thank you for being there. Thank you.
Thank you. It
Thank
was a pleasure.
you.
And of course, the recording will be made available very, very soon, with a couple of edits perhaps, and it will be as usual on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.